AI is one of those things that it is the one tool that is searching for a problem, right? Are we moving too fast? The laws have to catch up with all of these things that we're doing, and it will. If people put the word AI in their tool, we watch the costs completely skyrocket, right? HR is not necessarily considered in the books a revenue generator, although if you look at the impact of good HR, it actually does help the company make money.
Hello, and welcome to the Human Capitalist Podcast. I am your host, Trent Cotton, and joining me today is actually someone that I met on a panel, I think in 2021, and we took it over, and like just the energy and everything, and we have been BFFs on all things data, employee experience. Everyone just, you're going to love Miss Kalifa Oliver. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. What were you waiting on?
I know. Like, why? But you know, it's funny. Last night, and it was sponsored by a vendor, and he had a really kind of cool thing. So everybody had like a little place card, and he wrote 2 questions that you could answer in your introduction, and it was for each person, like individualized. And mine was, how do you and what do you get out of being a LinkedIn top voice? And I thought it was just kind of an interesting question, because a lot of times I forget that I'm that nomenclature or that badge or whatever. But my answer, and this is evidence of it, is the number of relationships that I have made with incredibly smart, incredibly passionate, and just fun professionals in the field is one of the main drivers that I stay on LinkedIn. And of course, you are top 10 for that.
Yeah.
So, and funny story is that we knew each other for what, 2 years, and you live 3 hours away from me.
It's so far. I probably live like 2.5 with Atlanta.
True. And we met for the first time in Seattle. So it made no sense whatsoever.
That's all right. We had fun in Seattle too. So
we did.
Watching people get knocked out by fish is always fun. So
I know. I remember Floss's face whenever that fish almost, like, you know, she was so just completely outdone, and you and I are there for it, you know.
Rolling.
So tell everyone, because you have got such an impressive background, just kind of do a brief bio so we can set the stage for why you're such a pro.
Yeah, so my background is, my name Kalifa Oliver. My background is industrial organizational psychology and people analytics. Got my Ph.D. from Clemson University and my certification in people analytics from MIT. If you hear an accent, originally from Trinidad and Tobago, my focus has always been on employee experience and data and how to marry the two and how we can better create experiences by looking at employee experience more as a product like we do in a customer space. I've always been focused on humanizing the way we work without it being in competition to the purpose of business to make money. And how do we introduce new tech and HR tech into that space and data, yet still keep a people-centered design in how we architect workspaces?
Absolutely. And you recently wrote a book, because I know you and
I
I did a little kickoff.
Yes, because you might be a I did.
Yes.
I think I love my job. Yeah, I did.
Yes. And so
I forget about that.
anyone that's right. I mean, I love it though, because you know, every 10 videos is Khalifa on my TikTok, and you know, either her funny little poignant, thought-provoking little things about employee experience, or her merch, or one of her glamorous photoshops. I'm like, wow, you were asking me for advice on how to launch when we were in Seattle. I'm like, maybe I should be taking notes from her. I mean, she is doing it, you know.
Listen,
The only glamour shots I do is, the glamour shots I use are through AI.
Are your everyday shot, man?
Whatever. So tell everybody a little bit about the book, like what's in it and what made you write it.
So I think one of the biggest things I've been thinking about this question because I get it asked a lot, and I think it is It is the book that I needed when I was starting out in this space, right? I knew I liked employee experience. I was always tasked to like do employee listening, to work with data. But anytime I was looking to understand how to do it, how do I build better experiences, I either had to go to like a very academic journal article or find some sort of self-help book. So this book I call the love letter to younger Khalifa earlier in her career to help young people or people who are either just starting out or tasked with the big job of creating employee experiences. And that is everybody through somebody who is in talent acquisition, somebody who is just working in HR as a generalist, somebody who's leading a function. How do you do this thing? How do you create a better employee value proposition and brand? Really using data and really doing one that you can be proud of at the end of it that is sustainable over time. So that's what the book is about. It's anecdotes, it's stories, but it's
Hmm.
also a step-by-step guide. Design.
It's a great read, and if anyone knows either one of us, they can probably understand why we connect because it's on the data, growing up, you always had those data people, and they were always there was a stigma.
Yes,
Those are the weirdos. They're kind of to
yes.
themselves. They think weird. They're weird. And it's so funny because, I think of you, I think of me, I think of like three other people right off the top of my head. Love data, like all in the data, but we're kind of fun.
Right,
We're kind of the
right.
cool kids now.
Like we know it's boring, but you can have fun with it, right? Like
Absolutely, absolutely. So you know me, but just to kind of set the stage, I define my job as being the role that is in charge of the asset that produces the most revenue and is also the largest expense, which is its people. That's why I lean toward human capital. So, looking at that lens, how do you view the world of human capital changing over the next? Let's just kind of keep it one, and if you feel bold or froggy, jump to the 1 to 5 years. I used to be able to do that, but now with everything changing, like, can we just talk about? I
the
feel good with
short
that.
term, right? The short term. So
Right.
I'll go like for 12 to 18 months. I think we
Okay.
tend we keep having this conversation about the future of work, right? It's here.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
here.
Right.
And the future, and I think what one of the things COVID did was accelerate HR tech. A big reason for that is that this was one of the first times in a long time that globally how people were viewing and experiencing work were changing. It was changing very rapidly, and decisions had to be made very rapidly. CHROs and CPOs and chief talent officers got kicked to the front of the room. Like, how do we do this? In order to do a lot of that, a lot of HR tech needed acceleration. If you needed people to work remotely more quickly, more efficiently, if you needed to redesign work, the biggest problem I think people found is HR tech wasn't there. It wasn't there where it needed to be. I think we were skating, if you will, right? You could
Right.
always assume HR tech was about 10 years behind where it could have been if you look at any other product or customer space or customer facing space. I think in the next few years, we've seen this acceleration. Now we're going to see the scaling, right? So we've seen the acceleration of tech. We've seen the introduction of new tech. We've seen everybody's talking about AI. Everybody's talking about AI models. I saw a code the other day that I couldn't agree with more, where it said that AI is one of those things that it is the one tool that is searching for a problem, right? Because
Hmm.
everybody is saying, here's the solution, but people are like, okay, but what problem are we solving with this thing, right? We're,
Right.
we're, we're finding the problems to back the AI into, which is usually not the way you would develop any sort of solution. And the same thing is happening in HR. But now that we have this big burgeoning field within HR tech and these new spaces, the question now is, okay, well, how do we scale all of these? And how do we really decide what works, what doesn't work, what is efficient? And then when we figure that out in the next few years, what we're doing is now we build and figure out what the gaps is because we still need to fill these gaps with new tech. Are we moving too fast? The laws have to catch up with all of these things that we're doing, and
Right.
it will. So I think that's where we are. I think we need to sit and scale now and see what's ethical and what's not ethical and what works and what doesn't work and what's just superfluous. We just bought it because it was cool at the time. So I think that's where we are.
Well, and I want to come back to the ethical part because I know you and I have talked about that in probably a different way than most people are talking about it. But are there some AI trends that you're watching? Because I know you, you are very keen on what's going on in the market. And you keep a finger on on the pulse of the data. What are some of the things that you're kind of watching with a raised eyebrow?
I'm watching the cost of AI
Really
tools. The cost of
unpack
AI
that.
tools. So the impact of it. So right now we're seeing, and the name of the company that came and disrupted AI, it's
Deep Sink.
DeepSeek, right? So when we were thinking about the ability to bring AI in, because one of the biggest problems, and I think this is what we'll get to when we talk about the ethics of using AI in HR, right? They're slightly
Hmm.
different from using it in the consumer space or using it for personal use, right? But the ethics
Right.
of using it because of the outcomes, right? One of the things I think is HR tech comes at a cost, and we know it.
Hmm.
If people put the word AI in there too, we watch the costs completely skyrocket, right?
Yep.
Because there's this huge additional cost because we're thinking of the parts of AI, right? And AI is expensive
Hmm.
to run, there's environmental sustainability, et cetera, et cetera. But now we're also seeing that these costs are actually inflated, right? These costs are really, really high. And this is not the first time this has happened. Think about when computers came on the scene, right?
Right.
You, to get a laptop, you were easily paid about $2,000. If you think about
Easy.
a TV you could get for like $500 now. That was a luxurious
Oh
30-inch TV
yes.
for like $2,000. So we've seen that in
Right.
tech right now. And I think the cost to HR, to your point, right? HR is not necessarily considered in the books a revenue generator. Although, if you
Hmm.
look at the impact of good HR, it actually does
Exactly.
help the company make money. But it's one of those things where there's an invisible hand in between, right? And so you
Hmm.
attribute all of it to the product and not to the producers, right, of the thing. Um, but what that means is most people view HR costs as high. It is the biggest expense of the organization already. So then you add tools that don't seem customer facing or customer impacting directly to it. You're like, do I need to pay $2 million for this tool? And you're like, yeah, but
Right.
it has AI in it. So the thing that has my eyebrow raised right now, the thing that I keep looking at is the cost of putting in these tools and the benefit of adding these tools in a world where we still don't know what legal protections we have, what risks we
Right.
have because we don't really understand it, the quick and accelerated updates these tools are getting, the new and burgeoning markets that's coming. So there's a cost and it's blowing up, but it has to scale at some point. So when does it scale? And so that's the thing I think. And I'm kind of glad DeepSeek came in because I think it made people step back and go, wait,
Yeah.
before we decide on spending this much money, have we really looked at this tool or are we just going with the wave of it? And I don't think DeepSeek is perfect, right? But I
Mm-mm.
think we have to consider these costs because these costs at the end of the day will be passed on to the consumer. It's going to affect us in one way or the other. So I think
Right.
that's what I'm kind of eyeing with data.
And it was interesting with DeepSeek, um, just the borderline hysteria that it caused
Yeah.
of, well, we got to do this, and China has access to it. I mean, there was all of this stuff in this, like in a 24-hour news cycle. It was almost unreal. But what I loved watching was the after effects of it. What happened? Oh, now all of a sudden we have 4.5 ChatGPT. Oh, wait, now we have 3.7 Sonnet with Claude that has got, and now everyone is going in and they're showing that graph. I can't remember
Right.
that external agency that kind of governs or does a survey of what's the accuracy, what's this, what's that. There's like 5 or 6 different things. And now all of them are like, here's how they are on the model. And, DeepSeek, had its moment of fame and it's kind of
And it's
falling into
gone,
third place ahead of these,
right, right,
you know?
right, right,
And
right.
two, I think something, you were talking about the HR tech, and I love that's, to me, that's interesting that that's one of the things that you're watching, but it makes sense just knowing you. Can we also point out, and my word of caution to everyone that I have talked to that is considering any kind of HR tech, just because it says AI, dig, dig on it. Is the product only bringing in ChatGPT? Because if so,
Yeah.
you don't need to pay an upcharge for that. Just use ChatGPT on the
Yeah.
side.
Yeah.
But what I'm finding is
Yeah.
like 60% of the companies, they're selling advanced automation workflows as AI.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Let's
Drives me
unpack it.
crazy. So let's just talk about AI just to begin with, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest misconception that most people cannot get out of their heads, and I think it's because of science fiction, right? We finally reached the point
Mm-hmm.
where science
Yeah.
fiction movies and the world seems to be aligning with each other. They can't get out of their head that we're not talking about actual intelligence. It's not sentient. It's something that is modeled and trained using data. It is only as good as the data that is being put in, the expertise of those who are developing it at any point. It's statistics, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
we've been doing this stuff for years. We've been modeling
Yeah.
data for years. It is
It
basic
just took longer.
statistics. It just took longer. It's an advanced model. It is,
Yeah.
it's funny to me how people seem to have skepticism of science, but not seeing that this is also science.
Right.
This is science. All your AI is doing is literally taking all the data that you've put in, running a series of models. So think of like regressions and all that stuff. Then calculating the likelihood that this is true, and then giving you the information based on that likelihood that it has. And so it keeps learning based on that. And I think by us using personifications, like it's learning, it's speaking, people are like, oh, this is sentient, this is another human, right? And I'm like, it's not,
Right.
it's a
Not.
model, right?
Yeah.
It's a model, and it can be improved at any time. It can be broken. You can hack it at any time. I think what's happening as part of that, I want to say misunderstanding, and it's a little bit of marketing, if we're honest. It's a little bit
Right.
of a
Right.
marketing package. We're taking things that are simple and we're assuming it's a lot more complex than it is. When I gave you that regression, if that hits that regret, it's giving you the same thing I could have given you without you paying an upcharge for it, right?
Right.
It's giving you a summary, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have to think about what we want AI for. So I do a lot of work in employee listening. For me, it's amazing because I could summarize tens of thousands of comments at a much faster pace. That is where you look at how this improves work and work efficiency and work outcomes. I can get information to leaders and insight to leaders faster. But if I just need a small summary of something, and if that is typically what I do you
Mm-hmm.
really need to pay the upcharge for a tool that is saying that it's AI when all it's doing is providing you a bunch of summaries that you were doing before, right? Or it's a
Exactly.
basic model. It's a basic model that's happening. It's a basic regression. It's a basic summary. It's a basic description. It's a
Mm-hmm.
chatbot. It's a
Right.
chatbot. We've been using chatbots for years. There are workflows that you can get already built into tools that you have. They're
Mm-hmm.
rebranding these things as AI because they've made AI, and I can say we, because I'm in data, but made AI this all encompassing thing that we're heading into snake oil territory where we're saying it can cure every ill. It can
Mm-hmm.
get, you have everything from a broken toe or a broken nail to cancer. This one thing will cure all of it. And that's what we're doing with AI. And I think we're doing a disservice to the work that is done in AI, and we're selling it and packaging it because I think it's a money run right now. Because I think we're getting to the point of having to scale it. And
Yeah.
um we're getting to the point of not just having to scale, but to start labeling and regulating it. So we need to run and grab the money now. I think that's where we are. So I'm with you 100%. I'm with you 100%.
Mm-hmm. And I want you to use the quote, because I've tried quoting you and I just never do any justice. Um, about bias, that everyone has bias, but, and I have my own version, but I want to hear the original because I think it really kind of encapsulates this whole talk about, well, AI has bias, so do humans. So what's the quote that I always want you to say?
You know that I shift my quote all the time too. But I think if I
Okay.
recall which one you're talking about, I think it's where I said that everybody has bias. Some people are just better at hiding it than others. I
Right.
think that's
Exactly.
the essential quote,
Yes.
right? Like
Well, and then
that's
there's
all it
another
is.
one. Yeah, but there's another one that you say that you don't take offense to someone having bias. You take offense to them acting on it.
Oh yes. Oh gosh, yes. That's oh yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, 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 yes. But I, like, and because
So
it's the
she's
same thing. Like when
and just for the audience, I just want to point out that you're so good. Your quotes, all of the good ones, they just all kind of run together for you. It just
they,
comes.
I'm like, I just run my mouth. That's what it is. But that's the truth, right?
Yeah.
Like everybody has a bias, right? Bias is how
Hmm.
we've survived.
Yeah.
Cognitive biases are built into how we survive. The shortcuts that we take to do things. But if you act on it, then that is you.
Yes.
You have made a decision and you now have the responsibility for the bias that it has. And that's the same thing that when we talk about technology. When you're making decisions in your model, you threw it on there.
Yeah.
You had the ability to check your own bias.
Yeah.
As long as you're aware of your bias, I'm fine with it. So you check your
Hmm.
own bias. If I am biased and I can put it in some model without a problem. I tell that something as simple as a survey, right? When I write a survey for a company, I can put my own bias into that survey because I'm going and assuming I
Yeah.
know everything that the people in there are facing. My job is to check my own bias. That's why I another quote of mine now is I say that the best skill you can have related to data right now is humility. That is the
Mm.
best skill. If you want to be a data scientist, if you want to get into people analytics, it's the best skill is humility. That is your secret weapon. That is your secret
Mm.
weapon.
And curiosity too. I think
Yeah.
some of the data people that I've worked with before that I didn't get along with, they were going in with a hypothesis that they were trying to prove with
Yeah.
the data versus this is my hypothesis. What does the data say? And what is that story? And I think that is so it's frustrating for me because I guess for me, I love going into the data aspect. And if I am using a chat model or a RAG or something, I will ask it the questions based on the data set, and I'll always add this one. What other trends are you seeing that I am not?
I love that.
Because there's always this little string that just kind of pops up, and I'm like, well, hang on a second.
Right.
Why are our Gen Zs responding this way in this particular area of the world versus what's going on in their I guess kind of the same generation in a different country? Is it economic? Is it educational? Is it cultural? Like what's going on there? So I do like that aspect of not having a really kind of I can analyze the story and then choose my own adventure
Choose the
from there, which
adventure at that
that
point.
right.
And the truth
So
is, the truth is people like that aren't they're not honoring science, right? And that's one of they don't
mhm,
honor science. Science is about disproving the know. Science is
mhm,
always about testing the theory and disproving as opposed to proving the thing, right?
right.
Proof should be an accident. You understand
Hmm.
what I'm saying?
It
Because
really should.
your aim is disproving your
Hmm.
theory. And people who go in just trying to prove something, they're dishonoring science. That
Hmm.
and those kind of people, and that's why to me it's so frustrating when people are arrogant in their pursuit
Oh yes.
of analysis.
And I had a client that you know they were like, I need you to go find me data to support this. I'm like, okay, well let's level set because that's not how I roll. That's what's the question that you're trying to answer, and let's go see what the data says. And they were like, no, I need to be able to prove this to the leadership that my idea is the best. I'm like, then you need to go find somebody else. I'm not your person.
Yes,
You know,
yes,
you need
I
a
love that.
yeah. So, well, let's talk a little bit about the workforce because I've been keeping up with some of your posts and changing them and just putting them in my own words so that way I sound smart.
And then make them do something.
What is that saying? The ultimate form of flattery is imitation.
Listen, I'll
But
take
no, I
it.
mean, I do like whenever it comes to data, there are five people, and you were one of them that I watch religiously, and then kind of go, all right, well, I wonder where she got that data. But from your perspective, this whole rise of technology, is it a threat to the workforce or is it a misunderstood opportunity?
I think it's a misunderstood opportunity. I
Okay.
think the aim of technology is efficiency, right? The
Hmm.
aim, it should be an ad. I think fear, again, fear of it is also in part to scientific arrogance. That's the
Hmm.
first, where we make it feel inaccessible to people. And the other thing is marketing, right? We have to market it to feel scarce and scary because that's how you jack up the prices on it, right? Because not only are you creating giving a product, but you're creating a problem and offering a solution at the same time. So I
Hmm.
think it's kind of what we do. I think technology helps us. The scary part, I think, for people is change. It's the introduction of this new thing, and we're telling people it's going to replace your job, but it's not supposed to replace your job. It's supposed to fill gaps, right? I
Right.
think, yes, it does mean that if it takes 17 steps to do your job successfully, and this thing can fill five of those steps, it means you have now time to spend on doing the other steps better,
Right.
right? You have time to change the skills that you had on doing these elements of the work. And then you now can upskill. So there's a lot of reskilling and upskilling that can happen. And I could see why that's daunting, right? Because a lot of people went to school, they learned a whole bunch of stuff, they told them go code, and now you're like, hey, yeah, I could code.
Yeah,
So
I don't need to.
you don't have to do that anymore, right?
Right.
And but I think we have to reframe that conversation. It's how do we fill the gap? So I tell people I'm old enough to remember again when computers were now coming on the scene. We had the same conversation. Computers are going to take people's job. People are going to be back home. You know what I mean? Right now, it's not the computers that are taking anybody's job or laying off people.
Hmm.
It's not the computers. What are we doing now? We're all sitting in front of computers. We've all had
Right.
advanced technology. We're walking around with a computer in our hand every single
Right. Yeah.
right? So these skills have changed. So if you look at these skills, when I look at these skills I had growing up, I look at my 9-year-olds or my 7-year-old, and I look at their skill with a computer at this age. There was no need for me to have those skills. I didn't
Hmm.
need to know how to do those things, right? Their brain and thinking is already different. And that's, I think, what is scary to a lot of people. I think it's a misunderstood opportunity, but I don't think the misunderstanding is unintentional in some circles. But I think a lot of us have to, who have the ability, the microphone, the platform, I think we have the responsibility to level set what we
Yeah.
mean, the implementation of technology into the workforce.
And it's funny, just this week, both the Financial Times and I want to say Business Insider, both of them came at it from different angles, but they were talking about companies that are actually seeing AI as a way to fill in skill gaps that they have always had, that they have tried to hire for, they've tried to train. And for one reason or another, they've not been able to close that gap. They're looking at how AI can go in there and close that gap. And to your point, make the human more efficient and kind of upgrade it a little bit, which I
Mm-hmm.
thought was pretty interesting. And I mean, let's face it, you're seeing it. I know I'm seeing it. New jobs out there.
New jobs.
Yeah, I've gotten a couple from clients, and all right, I want to need you. What the hell is
What
this?
does this mean?
Like you know. But it's one of the things that's really interesting, though. You were talking about tech. I'm in tech. One of the things that I'm seeing is, for the longest time, it's you're in software development, you're in QA, you're in DevOps. They were like these channels, these
Buckets.
lanes that
Yeah.
you kind of played
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
Now with AI, I think we're going to see this. It had already started, but I think we're about to hit the gas, where you need that T-shaped professional, someone that understands SDL or the full life cycle. Maybe they understand a little bit about QA. Maybe they can do a little bit on DevOps. Maybe their strength is full stack development, but they've got some breadth. And where their gaps are, they've got an AI agent that can kind of help make them appear and produce at an expert level. And there's been two or three jobs that come in, and I'm meeting with the leaders and going, okay, is this your world or your world? Like, I mean, they can kind of sit in between. So
like
it's
help
really
me.
interesting. Yeah.
It
Yeah. So,
is.
I mean, 92 million jobs, I think, is what Gartner said, or I don't remember who it was. It was McKinsey. 92 million jobs they expect to be created between now and 2030, which is exciting. But you and I were talking before, we've got 89 million people who do not have the skill set for
The
those
skill.
92 million. And how
Exactly.
many federal, in the US at least, how many federal
In the US
workers are now
alone.
about to enter the
And now
workforce?
to be in the workforce, right? And many of them
Mm-hmm.
long career federal workers, and it's happening in the private sector too. Long career workers, we need to reskill and upskill. That's
Mm-hmm.
just the truth. Even college itself is changing, right? Because younger kids are now coming up with some of these skills by default. They don't have to go to school for it. This is by
Right.
default, right? Simple things like
Right.
typing. There were when I was growing up, we didn't have to do a bunch of typing classes. Like that's just another thing. No, they don't really do that. They don't have to because this is natural to them. And I think
Mm-hmm.
we got to think through. But a good example that I see with the misunderstanding of AI in the workforce, I don't know if you've seen this, is Klarna. I think it's Klarna, where
Oh, yeah, it was
they
Klarna.
were
Yeah.
using the customer service. They made a big thing. They got rid of a bunch of people, made a big thing about using AI instead. But hey, who knew customer service might need people?
Right.
Instead, right?
Right.
And now they're
Right.
rolling back on it because we have the overinvestment. And I'm like, that's what happens
Mm-hmm.
when you try to replace one with the other instead of trying to rebalance, right? There are
Mm-hmm.
elements of work. I think we need to start looking at work. One of the most aggravating, tiring, exhausting, and things people don't like to do in IO psychology is job analysis because it's
Mm-hmm.
boring. It's extremely boring. But job analysis is what we need now. What are the jobs? What are we doing? What's changing? What's the element of the job that's changing? I think we've created jobs that we've elevated to a position, and mainly because of payments and the innovation of it. For example, software engineers, love engineers, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Fascinated by them, which I was smart as most of them,
Me too.
but seeing a massive decline in software engineering jobs. But let me tell you
Mm-hmm.
something I know. Some of the smartest coders and engineers I know would have a cheat sheet next to them,
Oh, yeah.
right? When they try to remember something, the technology they have allows them to do that faster without having to search for the cheat sheet, without having to Google stuff, right? In many cases, these things are searches for them. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
replace their experience and expertise. And so I think again, we have to figure out, okay, so what are these skills needed? If I'm a software engineer today, what is the change that I need? And to your point, it might be I need to know more about the life cycle of this product. I don't stick in this one lane anymore. I
Right.
have to know a lot more, right? And so I think that is where we are with technology and the workforce. Do I think technology is just going to replace us? No, because it's not sentient, right? Somebody
Right.
has to maintain it. Somebody has to teach it. Somebody has to update
Mm-hmm.
it. Somebody has to regulate it. Somebody has to recognize when it's wrong, and
Right.
somebody has to recognize when it's broken and
Yeah.
and and fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny, one of the new little buzz terms that I'm hearing a lot is human in the loop, you know, because the little platform that I use to build out agents, that was like a big product update, was having a human in the loop in this AI agent workflow. So I do think that people are now understanding, hey, you still need to kind of check it
Yeah.
and make
So they can
sure.
say something right. A little something.
Well, yeah, but I mean, again, two data people go in and inspect what you expect. So to us, it would be kind of natural. But I think this is also helping some of those who have got that fear, that initial risk aversion of going, I can't hand everything over to AI because I can't trust it. This gives them that opportunity to kind of build that trust and credibility mutually with the
Agree.
product, AI, and with the individual. But one of the things too that I know we talked about a couple of times is this rise of the gig economy. We were talking before we started recording. Just, I mean, this job market sucks, and I know
Yeah.
several people that just said, you know what, they're giving the middle finger to corporate America, and they're going, I'm going to go do my own. I'm going to be my own boss. I'm going to be responsible for putting food on my table. I'm not I'm not going in to get potentially severed in a year because the company needs to
Right.
save money. What are you
Right.
saying with the rise of the gig economy?
I think the one thing I tell people, and I said this the other day at a conference, is I think it's rising. The problem that we've had is that too much of the gig economy was also tied to corporate in ways that people didn't know. So when you think about, if I was a driver, you were driving for a large corporation. Now we're seeing what happens, right? So you did the gig, right? You seeing more. I'm seeing more fractional work too, right? Which effectively is just
Exactly.
contract
Yeah.
work. I think Europe's model of contracts is a good one, right? If you don't know how long this job is going to last, just offer me a contract. Offer me a 6 month contract.
Hmm.
Offer me a 1 year contract. People need to plan their lives. I think it's more difficult, I think, in the US right now because we've tied work to healthcare. We've tied work to
Hmm.
benefits. And so it's not as easy as you see in other countries where they don't have that tie. So you can move around because your healthcare is not dependent on your ability to be at a
Right.
job for an extended period of time. And I think that's what people are starting to see, that tie is creating this problem where you're asking me for loyalty, you're asking me to stay, fine. But then there's no loyalty in the end because then you have no problem just cutting me out. One day I'm here, the next day I'm there. And then you might say it's performance, but it doesn't align with what the data is saying with performance, right? And
Right.
so the truth is, you made mistakes. You made mistakes, and now I have to pay for it. And we're seeing mistakes in private and in public sectors where I lay you off because you're a number, right? Because that's what I
Hmm.
want people to understand. You get laid off because you're a number. In that moment, you're a number. It doesn't matter. I don't care how many Zoom calls you're on. I don't care how many times you show your face. I don't care how many times you're in the office. You're a number. If you've ever been on the other side of it, you're a number. In that moment, you're a number. They would prefer not to remember your face, to be honest, when they're
Hmm.
when they're looking at these numbers, right? So you have that situation, and I think people are getting to the point where they're like, I want to be a little bit more in control because you're asking me for this loyalty, but I don't know if the loyalty is there. I'm working under the gun. I'm stressed out all the time. And at any time, it could just go boom, right? And I've
Hmm.
been there. I've been there. I've been there. And I know what that feels like. And so I think what people are looking for is to feel valued. One thing that happened, I think, during the COVID period is people started to take another look at not just their relationship with work, but their relationship with their families, their relationship with their own
Hmm.
health, their
Yeah.
relationship with their well-being. And I think that's what you're fighting now. A lot of corporate leaders are fighting these new perspectives that people have. And that's what I think driving the gig economy is driving new entrepreneurs, is driving people to say, I'm going to bet on myself because when I'm at work, nobody seems to be betting on me. They're just working me. Right. I don't feel valued. I don't seem seen. I don't feel appreciated because nobody's betting on me. I have to constantly bet on me, and I think that's what's happening. What I think is happening though with the gig economy is in many cases the gig economy is relying on the same corporations that are also creating risk in the employment economy,
True.
and so
It's
there's
like a
this
chicken and
way.
egg thing.
Yeah, because you need to get
Hmm.
contracts from them. And then, the thing people don't tell you about being an entrepreneur is many people don't pay. They just
Right.
don't pay you or they don't pay you on time. And so what do you
Hmm.
do in those situations when your bills need to be paid? So I tell people, and this is what I say, entrepreneurship, gig life, fractional life, it's not an escape, right?
Hmm.
Do not, it's not to be faint of heart, but it's not an escape from corporate life either, right?
Hmm.
Because it's just a new set of problems. The only difference is you're betting on yourself. Do I think that the gig economy could work? Yes. But I think first we've got to, and this is probably very heavy US leaning, we've got to untangle some of these elements of our lives
Agreed.
out of it so that we can offer contracts. We can just give somebody a
Hmm.
6 month contract. You can give somebody a 1 year contract. You can tell somebody, if this is a probationary period, we may not renew this contract. But people's lives, and I mean their literal life and death, cannot depend on it. Right.
Right.
And I think we can get to more of a fractional way of working, more gig way of working, more a distribution of income that makes it worth it. And I think when people feel empowered and valued, they do more work. And if gigs are how people are feeling more empowered and valued, go for it. Go for it.
Well, and I think though one of the things that's going to have to change is that the mindset of most corporations, whenever they're looking at a contract, is I'm paying you for 40 hours of a week. you've got to change it. Like, if I enter in any kind of a contract, I'm like, well, how many hours is it going to take? Okay, what do you want me to do? Because that's what you're paying for. You let me worry about the hours. Okay. So
Exactly.
I do think that it's going to have to be more of a outcome based mindset
Yeah.
because, let's just talk about design work. Maybe I've got this part of the project and I really need a heavy UX on it. But I've got a 3 week run on it. By the end of the 3 weeks, this is what I need to get done. You're a badass UX designer. You come in and
Right.
go, hey, yeah, I can get that to you in 3 weeks. In your mind, you go, this is going to take me 6 hours. I'm
Right.
going to bill them for that 3 weeks, and the company's okay
Right.
because that piece is important in the project. It changes the dynamics, because now
Yes.
you work on those for the 6 or 10 hours. You can do that at scale and then go and take 2 or 3 weeks off, spend time with your
I,
family.
and that shouldn't matter. That should matter. You know what I mean? I
Right.
agree. Like it should not matter. If I tell you that this is a 6 week contract, but then I realize when I'm doing the work that I am a boss at this. I'm a G
Mm-hmm.
at this. I can get this done in 4. You shouldn't care. If I
Right.
produce excellent work and I give you what you need, you shouldn't care how long it actually took me to do it. This is what we arranged. I am telling
Mm-hmm.
you, this is the value of my skill. This is what I'm
Mm-hmm.
telling you. And I think that's what is so difficult for a lot of, and I say a lot of well established leaders in Rome for a very long time, they have difficulties understanding that they need to move away from this formulaic approach to
Mm-hmm.
work. And that's because they have been rewarded for years and years and years and years, and they've gotten to their positions of power through the same formula. This is the formula
Right.
that was passed to them. This is the formula they went to their university and they were taught. This is what was packaged for them. This is what is handed to
Mm-hmm.
them. The formula, the formula, the formula. And here comes people saying, this manufacturing model of I'm here 1 hour, I do one sprocket, 1 minute, one sprocket, right? This
Mm-hmm.
formula of time doesn't need to be this way. You need to
Mm-hmm.
pay me for the value of my skill, right? And it seems like
Exactly.
we only understand that at like the executive levels, that I
Mm-hmm.
don't have to pay you for your time. I'm paying you for
Right.
your skill and your expertise. That's why you're
Mm-hmm.
making millions of dollars. And we're okay with that. But then you will tell the
Mm-hmm.
person who's the frontline worker, yeah, but I need 12 hours from you. What was the most ridiculous one I heard recently? 60? Is it a guy from Google? 60 hours a week. The ex-founder of Google said, yeah, people should be working like 60 hours a week, right?
Is
Um,
he?
and that's what he said. That's what he said. And he said people should work, 60, 40 hours a week. He says a good week. That's an okay week, but people should be working 40 hours a week. Again, it's just focus on time because people can understand.
Mm-hmm.
People like to simplify and package it
Yeah.
into time, but it's skill. You're paying me for my skill and my expertise. My skill and my
Mm-hmm.
expertise means the quality of the outcomes are more likely to be higher. Somebody who looks like me, talks like me, walks like me mightn't have the skill that I have, right? And
Right.
they may need the full 12 weeks, and that doesn't mean they're bad. It means that is
Mm-hmm.
the median amount of time it will take for this level of skill. But then
Mm-hmm.
I might be just that much better. I'm not giving you a
Yep.
20% discount on my skill because I'm
Exactly.
20% better. Right?
Yeah.
I should be
Yeah.
punished for being better, you know?
And can we
So
also say that the longer that conversation goes up, the higher my price becomes? Because you're
right,
telling me everything I
right.
need to know about the client I'm about to work with, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And not only that, I'm also learning when you might pay me.
Right.
So I need to add
Right.
more things into the contract, and then the more of a mess you
Uh-huh.
make, the more my skill, because you need now my crisis management skills. See, I didn't come into this
Right.
contract to do crisis management, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
hearing you and I'm
Mm-hmm.
understanding that there is a crisis that you're doing or you're about to do. So now I'm going to add my crisis management skills in there, and that sends the fee
Just
further
jacking
up.
the price up. Oh, you're gonna love this. So whenever I did consulting, I did banking, got into HR, and then kind of went out and did my own little HR kind of consulting thing. I had a clause, a change order clause, and most people didn't really violate it, but it was if you and I agree on a tactical approach to a problem, and we sign off on it via email or whatever the exchange is, and you go the other way and do something completely different, there's an X% charge on me coming in and cleaning the mess that you created by not following what we agreed to. There was
Was
one client, I kid you
feeling
not, in
that,
six
feeling that.
months, you should, in 6 months, I made $48,000 just in change fees. So whenever he got the bill, because the CEO, and I used to finance him, but I was working with his executives, and I asked the CEO, I said, how much do you want me to keep you included? He goes, no, I trust you and I trust my leaders. I said, are you sure about that? He goes, yeah. I said, well, then don't call me whenever the bill comes in. So he calls me when the bill comes in. He goes, what the hell is this, Cotton? And so I had it itemized. And I said, and oh, by the way, I said, I went one step further. 62.97% comes from this one manager. And also, if you correlate this, he goes, just stop talking. I'll pay the bill. I said, everything is pointing to this person is your problem. He says yes in the boardroom and then turns around and goes and does something different. And I'm sorry, but my time is very valuable and I don't have time to clean up messes that I did not originally contract to solve.
Right.
So yeah,
Because
steal
it's
that. I
called the
made,
stupid. I'm stealing that. It's called the stupid tax.
well,
It's the stupid tax.
actually, I had what was it? A COSA. That's what he said. He goes, what is a COSA? I said, change order. Stupid ass. So yeah,
Like,
that
I'm like,
was my little,
it's a stupid tax. It is a stupid tax.
yes,
Cost.
cost.
Change order
But
stupid tax. We're going to call it the cost.
right. But I wanted him, I didn't charge him the full 48 because, I liked
It's
him and
the
enjoyed the
point. A
work.
point, right?
But I said, now that I have your attention, now you can actually see that there is a cost for what this person is doing. You have a data point. What are you going to do about it? And
Right.
so it just kind of reframed. He ended up paying me half, but hey, that's fine. It's cool. But I think it's going to be interesting to watch how it's not, everybody talks about the workforce. I think how we work is going to be changed more. And that's what I'm kind of really interested in watching from a psychological, sociological, and sadistic standpoint. Just kind of go,
Not
how are people really going to
sadistic.
adjust to this change? Well, because I like to watch how people react to the change,
Right.
and everyone says that I'm sadistic that way. But I think that there's going to be this huge change that I think our kids, by the time they get to be our age, well, yours are a lot younger. Mine's 21, yours are less than 10, right? All three?
Man, it's my oldest just turned 10 yesterday.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay. So
I
yeah,
got a
I mean, by
long
the
way to
time,
go, Trent. I
right?
got a
Yeah.
long way
Hey,
to go.
yeah. Well, my daughter just informed me that she got accepted in the graduate school, which is fantastic. But it means that she won't be graduating now until August 27. It's like I was so close. I was so
You're
close.
so close to be
I know, but
free.
I'm excited for her. She's a smart cookie. So getting her
Oh,
master's in civil engineering. So I'm so proud of her. Were
nah.
you ready for some rapid fire?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
All right. So give me a book that changed your perspective on business or HR.
For me, it was Cialdini's book. Why every time I remember this, I lose the name. Had the answer, and I lose the name. But it's about how to negotiate. So it's like
Okay.
negotiation, and it's written by Cialdini. It's a good book. Google it. It's a really good book. But it really makes you look at how people negotiate. And I think business itself, HR is a series of negotiation and transactions, but we don't see it that
Totally.
way. Yeah.
Yeah. Got it. So what is like when you look through your career, a people problem that you solved that was your favorite because of complexity or whatever it was? So in 2 sentences, what was it?
For me, it was figuring out that the employee experience, well, employee engagement was just a piece of employee experience. I think we focused on it so much, it was broken. And so
Mm,
I had to eventually say, we're doing this wrong. And that was a solve because now I had the space to build something new and better. And we have the employee
love that.
experience. Yeah.
Love that. So where can people find and engage with you? I've already dropped TikTok. You're all over TikTok.
I'm everywhere running my mouth.
I
Generally, I'm on
know.
LinkedIn. I'm generally
Right.
on LinkedIn. You can find on LinkedIn, run my mouth. But I'm on all social media platforms except X. I'm not going to get on there again. And at Dr. Khalifa O, I'm everywhere. I'm on Blue Sky, I'm on YouTube, I'm on TikTok, running my mouth.
Mm. She
At
famous.
Instagram, Facebook, not famous. At Dr. Khalifa, I'm telling you, the book. I think the book is that child in his book is influence, and it's funny how now everybody wants to be an influencer.
Oh,
So,
yes.
um,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there is a stat that we didn't get to that I'd love to have you back on, that talks about the percentage of the new generation coming in that their job that they actually want to be is an influencer. So
yes,
what is that
I
going to
have
mean
been.
for marketing? What is it? Yeah,
What is
I
that?
think it's just interesting.
What does that even mean? Any layoffs, right? Because right
Right.
now, like I've seen so many people get laid off, and if you go on TikTok, they say I'm going to be a full-time content creator instead. What does
Right.
that mean then? What does that
Yeah. Who's
mean
going to buy your product?
for
Yeah.
right, right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, you probably see it because you're on there as much as I do. Whenever people position themselves as expert, and I go, and I'm like, I've seen your background. What are you the expert of? Job hopping or like what? What? How are you an expert? But anyway, so find you on LinkedIn, Dr. Khalifa Oliver, the one and
Oh,
the
just Dr.
only.
Khalifa. Oh, wait,
Oh, Khalifa O. Sorry,
wait,
Dr. Khalifa O. And then they can find your
everywhere.
book on Amazon,
Yes, and I'm on my website, www.khalifaoliver.com.
right? And you have some merch that I
I
saw
have
recently.
merch. I do. I have
Yeah,
sweaters and caps, because that's why, sometimes, you think
yeah.
you love your job, right? Again, humility. You're not sure, but you
Love it.
might.
Not sure. Yeah, the jury's still out. So give me a one-liner mic drop moment that if someone just listened to the last 5 minutes, they would remember you by.
That every time you want to create a good experience, it has to be quiet. And so the only thing that you can do is focus on removing the noise. And even if that noise is AI.
Mm. Love it. Well, BFF, it's always good to see you. Hang out.
But
We've
with
got to we need to coordinate our travel, make sure that we're going to some of the same conferences so we can hang out again.
yes, please. Or, drive between where I live and you live since it's not far.
Yeah, we can do that. We can do that. That's way too easy though. Let's go somewhere.
That's
Well,
true.
Khalifa,
That is
thank
true.
you for coming on. It's always a good time with you.
Yes, I'm always happy to be here. Call me whenever you need me.
Absolutely. All right, ciao.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Human Capitalist. This channel is all about community, so comment, subscribe, and join the conversation. This is Trent Cotton, your human capitalist, signing off. Remember, invest in yourself, own your potential, and keep building your own human capital. I'll see you next time.